Coming up on Network Africa, Egypt temporarily withdraws from renewed talks on the future of a giant hydropower project on the Nile River being built by Ethiopia. South Africa's health minister warns the risk of a second wave of the coronavirus pandemic still remains in the country. Plus, Zimbabwe's vice president named as the new health minister after a COVID-19 scandal. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Layo Adegoke. The discussions over the Nile Dam appears to have hit a brick wall as Egypt has temporarily withdrawn from the renewed talks on the future of the giant hydropower project. Now, the latest standoff is over new filling guidelines proposed by Ethiopia. Sudan has also threatened to withdraw from the talks, saying Ethiopia is insisting on linking them to renegotiating a deal on sharing the waters of the Blue Nile. Egypt, Ethiopia and Sudan, through which the Blue Nile flows, have been negotiating for the best part of a decade, but all the while the dam has been built. Ethiopia, meanwhile, is celebrating as the rains begin filling the dam in June, but the neighbors are concerned over people who depend on the river downstream. All right, let's get more on this story from VOA's Edward Yeranian. He joins us now from Cairo. Hello, Edward. Thank you for speaking to us on Network Africa.
My pleasure, Layo.
I know we have discussed about this issue many times, and with this latest developments, Egypt withdrawing from the talks, what is the reason behind the government's decision this time?
Well, I think perhaps there's a little bit of maneuvering involved in giving the impression to the Egyptian people that the government is taking some sort of action. I don't think anyone wants to take any stronger action than that right at the moment, although down the road, if the situation gets out of hand for Egypt, it's entirely possible other actions could be taken. But at this point, I think the Egyptian government is expressing its displeasure. I think clearly the Ethiopian side is not adhering to the African Union guidelines, which was to say they needed a legal mechanism to address quarrels over what was taking place. And if there are no legal ways of addressing the problems, then what's the point of having an agreement?
And what is the implication of this, especially on negotiations, on future negotiations? What's the implication of this withdrawal?
I think it follows a pattern of withdrawals by all the parties when they don't like whatever is the latest agreement that's been put forward, or one of the outside parties like the African Union or the United States, going back to February, propose an agreement which either of the parties don't like. So I don't see anything new here. I don't think either of the parties are going to take any dramatic action right at this point, because I don't think anyone's essential lifeblood has been threatened, but it could potentially happen. And I think that Egypt would clearly like to see a legal mechanism to address any issues with the filling of the dam or anything else pertaining to the dam. So that's clearly what's motivating the Egyptians.
Yeah, and like I said before, this dispute has been on for a while. For those who might not be aware, just help us understand why this dam is very controversial.
Well, a number of reasons. First of all, the Ethiopians built it without consulting either of the downstream parties, which is to say Sudan, South Sudan, and Egypt. It's also controversial because it affects the lifeblood of each of those countries. which depend heavily on it for water and for irrigation. And it also calls into question previous international treaties, which generally are sacrosanct when you deal with some issue like this.
All right, then, Edward Yeranian, VOA's correspondent in Cairo, thank you for speaking to us on Network Africa.
Thank you for having me, Leo.
Well, South Africa's Health Minister, Zweli Mkhize, has said the country might be over its recent surge of coronavirus cases by the end of August. But he's warning that the risk of a second wave of the coronavirus pandemic still remains and containment measures must continue to be imposed. Mr. Mkhize told a virtual media briefing that cases are tapering off in 3 provinces, including the commercial hub of Gauteng, adding that the country is yet to breach its hospital bed capacity, even after cases surged to over 500,000 over the weekend. South Africa has been the hardest hit on the continent and ranks 5th in the world in the number of confirmed cases. Mr. Mkhize has also ordered an investigation into media reports of healthcare workers lacking protective gear. Now, even before the new virus triggered the COVID-19 pandemic, diamond prices and demand were weak. But some of the many small players who polish the rough diamonds that South African miners unearthed say they have been pleasantly surprised by the extent of lockdown jewelry buying as enforced proximity kindled romance and feel-good spending.
South Africa's diamond industry, famed for sales the world over and supplying gems for the British Crown Jewels, is looking closer to home to revive its fortunes following the coronavirus slump. South African cutting and polishing firm Nungu Diamond said its custom-made jewelry sales have grown 60% since South Africa imposed a strict lockdown in March. Customers used their weeks at home for online consultations and were lining up for their purchases. One store reopened in June.
Never let a good disaster go to waste. I'm by no means suggesting that COVID-19 is a good disaster. What I'm basically saying is there has been opportunity in it. And we were fortunate to see the opportunity, to say, let's use social media, let's use different platforms to remain relevant. So to answer your question in short, simply, yes, it hasn't affected our business adversely, thank God. And we continue to grow even through this challenging period.
Bucking the trend of rising unemployment, Nungu has hired an in-house jewelry designer, joining a team of 5 polishers and 9 jewelers. Nungu says jewelry prices have held steady. Profit margins, however, could improve as lower global demand has depressed the price of uncut, unpolished rough stones bought from the mines. Thokos Diamond, another South African company whose business was based on selling rough and polished stones, said it was turning to jewelry. So far this year, the company has sold less than 20 carats and profits have fallen 65% as the exports that account for more than half of its business dried up. Thokos hopes its new line in earrings will appeal to the local market.
We supply more than 500 carats, from half carat to 1.5 carat. 2 carat, probably 20% of that whole chunk. So what that means is that due to COVID, this year, we've only sold less than 20 carats. So you can imagine in terms of revenue how much we've done.
Dalami said they will be launching a jewelry line early next year.
And as the world grapples with the COVID-19 pandemic, it's a struggle for many economies. Some businesses, big and small, have learned to adapt, while some have completely shut down owing to the global situation. Channels Television visited some small and medium-scale businesses run by Nigerians in South Africa, and they say it's been a rough 5 months for them.
The COVID-19 pandemic and the resultant lockdown has left many businesses comatose for about 5 months. While business opportunities have sprung up for some, many existing businesses have lost a spring in their step. Babatunde Adegbeson owns and runs Babtun's Design and Printing in Pretoria's Central Business District. He says his business has had it rough, but he had to do a quick think and adapt.
In the past 5 months, we've dabbled into certain areas of the business that could, project us further in terms of designing masks. Now that we're designing masks, it has changed the scope of our work a bit.
South Africa is still on level 3 lockdown, which means there are some business sectors still out of action. For Kasim Bankole, whose main businesses are in aviation, personal grooming and real estate, having his hands in several other pies has helped hold up his lagging businesses.
Before we can sell even 4 tickets, 5 tickets a day, but now you can sell maybe 1 in 2 weeks because not much people even want to take the risk of getting into flight, you see. So that business is down. Businesses, that's why I said there's always advantage. It has affected some businesses desperately. Like if this was the only business we have, we wouldn't open, believe me, we would be closed now.
The South African economy is struggling as a whole. While many look to government for support, it doesn't help when you're not a citizen in your country of residence.
All that we've been doing is all based on our effort, in trying to continue the business the way we've been doing for the past few years. We've just been creative and innovative in what we give to people, you understand? So basically, it's still all about, handout from friends and families and, the work that we do as well.
And in response to the cries of many affected business sectors, government seems to be shifting to softer ground gradually, with Thursday's announcement that the existing curfew will be moved to begin from 10 p.m. instead of 9 p.m. Intra-provincial travel for leisure is now permitted, so those in the hospitality and allied businesses could be breathing a bit easier for now.
The Nigerian High Commission is informing all prospective evacuees in the United Kingdom that arrangements have been concluded with Air Peace Airlines for the next batch of evacuation flights for stranded Nigerian nationals. The flight is scheduled to depart London on the 15th of August at 11 a.m. to Abuja only. Now, ticket fares include business class of 855,000 per passenger, economy class 403,750 naira per passenger. Now, before travel, prospective passengers are required to undergo a self-funded COVID-19 PCR test immediately in line with the new guidelines of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19. You can get more information from the Nigerian High Commission in UK website. Now, Zimbabwe's Vice President Constantino Chiwenga has been appointed as the new health minister about a month after the ministry was rocked by a scandal surrounding the procurement of coronavirus tests and equipment. Mr. Chiwenga is a former head of the army who led the military takeover from former President Robert Mugabe. His predecessor at the health ministry, Obadiah Moyo, appeared in court in June over corruption charges related to a $20 million contract awarded to a Hungary-registered firm, allegedly without going through the proper processes. However, Mr. Moyo was granted bail. Zimbabwe has so far confirmed nearly 4,200 coronavirus cases, including 81 deaths, but the actual number of cases is thought to be higher. Now, the U.S. government has donated 250 ventilators to Ethiopia to help the country in its response to the coronavirus pandemic. The donation comes after a promise made during a phone conversation between President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed in April. U.S. Ambassador Michael Rayner said the donation reinforces its unwavering commitment to the Ethiopian people to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 and to help Ethiopia save lives. In response, Ethiopia says it appreciates the contribution and support of the United States government that has helped strengthen and enhance the Ethiopian health system. The U.S. in a statement said it will provide warranty and service plans and training for Ethiopian medical professionals. You're watching Network Africa on Channels Television. Still ahead on the program. Somalia has launched a new national early warning center that's designed to help it predict disasters. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the program. We continue back here in Nigeria, in Yobe State. There's been different responses towards the reopening of schools for final year classes. Even though some private schools have reopened, others are awaiting directives from the State Ministry of Education. Channels Television's crew visited some public and private schools in Damaturu, the state capital, and discovered that some schools have already begun academic activities.
Nothing but silence for 5 months. The effect of the coronavirus lockdown for schools, including this one in Damaturu, is total.
Are you going to televise?
But hope seems to spring. Activities here are coming back to life. Resumption for exit students in Leaders Private School, in this instance, is sure.
We are sick and tired of staying at home. No school, no learning. Even the online learning, we don't understand it that much. So I've been waiting for the day we are going to resume school.
For the principal of the school, resumption of academic activities is welcomed.
We are happy the federal government at last opened the school. And as you can see, you see all the measures we are putting in place because of the happiness, so that we put the school in order for the children. And if you enter class now, you will see that the children have even started receiving lessons.
At Government Girls Unity College, Damaturu, in contrast, students are yet to resume. Renovation work is, however, ongoing in a dilapidated environment seen by many as a deeper concern. The authorities here at Scholars Academy are cautious of reopening.
We came as teachers here in the school, but we're waiting for the state government to give us permission to open fully, so which they promised to bring a letter to us any moment from now.
He awaits a definitive instruction from the state government. While the resumption is being awaited, the government says it plans to fumigate schools across the state against the spread of COVID-19.
Away from Nigeria, Kenya's First Lady Margaret Kenyatta has commended healthcare workers for their efforts during this ongoing coronavirus pandemic. Mrs. Kenyatta singled out community health workers who are educating the public on preventive measures. She also applauds what she describes as the selfless commitment to their work, their courage and compassion for people and the community. The country has seen rising coronavirus cases with healthcare workers among those infected. The Health Ministry said 8 healthcare workers have succumbed to the virus and 600 others had tested positive. The number of coronavirus cases stands at 23,202 in the country. Well, still in Kenya, people have been sifting through the heaps of trash at Nairobi's Dandora dump site for decades. These days, hairdressers are also scavenging, but for recyclable human hair to be reintroduced back to the market. During this economic downturn, a growing number of customers needed cheaper hair extensions, but the hair nestles alongside waste, such as masks and gloves used to protect against COVID-19.
Stylist Julia Wanja has been selling second-hand hair for over a decade, but says there is more demand now since many people cannot afford new extensions. She regularly picks her way delicately through piles of food waste, discarded masks, rubber gloves and other rubbish at Nairobi's Dandora dump site, looking for used hair extensions she can clean and resell to customers. The pandemic means fewer clients with less money, and she's cutting down on costs by cleaning and reselling hair from the dump site.
I started this hair business in 2008 by plaiting second-hand hair. If you come with new hair or second-hand hair, I weave it on you. So I realized that many people like to use the second-hand hair because of the economic state. Clients come with the second-hand hair because it is way cheaper than the new hair.
Wanja said she washes the used hair extensions carefully with detergent, antiseptic and hot water. Most of her customers trust her to wash the hair well, she said, although a few like to clean it themselves as well. Her customers say as long as the hair has been cleaned, they do not mind where it is from. The hair looks new. Long, luxuriant locks hang from the walls of Wanja's stall or are perched on a battered styrofoam head.
According to the current state of affairs in these COVID-19 times, getting your hair done is like trying to buy new hair from the shop. It makes more sense, but we must get our hair made. The hair bought new from a shop and bought used only differs in price, but once it is plaited, there's no difference.
Githiaga and other officials direct trucks to dump their loads depending on where the waste has come from. Domestic and commercial waste, which includes bags of hair extensions discarded by other salons, goes to different sections. Medical waste is usually incinerated.
And finally, on the program, as part of efforts in tackling disasters before they happen, Somalia has opened its first early warning center for different types of hazards. Analysts at the center hope that the data and information collected there can enhance the capacity of national agencies to deal with multiple natural and man-made threats.
Somalia has unveiled its first ever early warning center, designed to help the country predict disasters. And it could prove to be incredibly useful. Somalia has already suffered from flooding and a low-cost invasion this year. The centre is located at the government building in a former United Nations compound in Mogadishu. Analysts there are monitoring the latest satellite data, from temperatures to wind pressure. Its director, Kader Sheikh Mohammed, hopes that the data it collects will save lives.
Finding the accuracy data which may save life is one of the main important for us, and we look for and find wherever we can find it.
The centre opened in June and it's funded by Saudi Arabia through the United Nations World Food Programme. The idea came after cycles of floods and drought caused widespread food shortages, including a famine in 2011 that killed over 250,000 people.
The main challenge that we faced was the training we had to receive when the center was first set up. We all studied many other subjects. The training was so difficult for us, but now we have adapted and work here normally.
According to the United Nations, of Somalia's 15 million people, 5.2 million currently need aid. The violence in conflict-stricken Somalia has also destroyed almost all the country's infrastructure and has driven many educated Somalis abroad. Because of this, officials say that they initially struggled to recruit skilled workers locally for the centre. But it's now fully staffed by Somalis, something that will help remove language barriers in case of emergency and also speed up the overall response time to disasters.
And that's where we end the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke. Do stay safe.